Yo, people, welcome back to another stream and welcome back to another episode of the Off the Boundary Show. First one in a long, long time, but I haven't been really able to get some time, but it's back. And we're getting ever closer to the World Cup. Um, So why not? Let's get this on road once more. But I'm not alone. As always, I am joined by Manny. How are you?
Yeah, all good, all good, all good. Obviously, with all of the football going on, it's a little bit easy to forget about the cricket. A bit disappointed that we weren't able to get together to reflect on what was a wonderful Ashes series, but I'm sure that's going to be, you know, first on our agenda. And yet, we do have some more cricket coming up. As you mentioned, we have the ODI World Cup to be taking place in October, November. There's a lot of ODI and T20 cricket going on. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Anna, have you frozen, son?
I think I'm back. I think I'm back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah. So we've got a lot on the agenda. Of course, we couldn't do a proper review to the Ashes, like Manny said. Yes, time commitment at that time just wasn't working as well. Um, but we will discuss a bit about it and just about the fallout and everything. Um, we will be discussing also New Zealand versus England, that series going on. And then, of course, the Aussie series win over South Africa. And it was really a B team from us. But um, yeah, look, I'm not positive about cricket in South Africa. That's one thing, that's for sure. We also discuss a few of the women's cricket action that's going on. So yeah, uh, let's go into more of the Ashes review. Let's just do some comments back yourself, just fan. Um, yeah, as you come in, do smash that like button. And you might not see the watch long we did yesterday on. I am sorting that out. It's just a long process. Um, then it will be up hopefully tomorrow. So yeah, hopefully it's tomorrow. So yeah, but that is taking a while to, to be done. But yeah, let's get into the Ashes review. Of course, it ended up 2-2. England, well, it was. I think England they done well to fight back, um, but they probably should have done better in the earlier test. Of course, it was the test that rained out that almost killed the series, and the rain in the fifth test that made it difficult. But Australia, ever since Chris Oakes and Mark Wood came into the team, like we said, they just couldn't get into. Couldn't really play like they did in the first two tests. That's really what cost them. And those two, Mark Wood and Chris Wilkes, I think the series belongs to them almost from England's perspective. Um, and of course, Mon Ali Wally continues his career. I don't think so.
No, he won't. He made it crystal clear that if Ben Stokes were to call him again, he text him again, he'd put the phone down and say, "Sorry, Skip, not this time." It was just a one-off for him.
Yeah, yeah. But also rumors that Ben Stokes could be playing ODI World Cup coming up soon. Of course, I think that's Josh Butler, Captain Josh Butler. I think he's up for it. Um, but yeah, I think England, if you look at it, they almost came out of this whole series more positive than the Aussies. Um, and just because I think the Aussies will look at themselves and think we should have won the series, um, because of of what um, because of what basically bottling a 2-0 lead that you expected them to do well. So I think Australia are left with more questions than answers right now in the test part of their cricket. England, they all, I don't say they left with questions, but they also need to look at talent coming through there to replace the likes of Ben Stokes, the likes of uh, Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley when they're not on form. Even James Anderson. But the same goes for Australia. They don't have much talent going coming through in the test department of Australian cricket. So I think Australia are left with more questions. The management team um, and the players coming through, and I think also the captaincy of Pat Cummins, um, where I think England they don't have as many questions. I think the only question there is talent coming through, new bowlers to replace the likes of Broad, the likes of Anderson, etc. Um, but yeah, that's what I think mostly.
Hmm.
But what do you think, Manny?
Well, I'm actually going to start by quoting Usman Khawaja, who basically said that the fact that Australia have not, lost the Ashes series and have kept the urn since 2013, 2014 is proof that, they did what they had to do, basically the bare minimum. And at the end of the day, the result is that Australia keep the urn. Yes, there is some disappointment at having, drawn a series which they should have won. And in that respect, they didn't perform too much better than Tim Paine's boys, who also drew the series up 2-2. But the circumstances, of course, with Tim Paine and his lads drawing the series and Pat Cummins and his boys drawing the series, some years apart were a bit different because Paine obviously took up the leadership when Australia were reeling in a way from the Sandpapergate scandal, which saw Steve Smith and David Warner receive those bans. Warner getting Warner getting banned from any further leadership opportunity, while Smith was inexplicably brought back into the leadership fold as Pat Cummins as vice captain, who would in fact deputise for him during the Indian series. Smith never should have been given that privilege, but maybe it was a case of Australia scraping the barrel. I don't know. And when you take a look at the series in its entirety, if England are going to basically talk about how they have so much more to gain from the series than Australia, then they're going to have to look at themselves and say that there were a few moments of rather silly, needless cricket and a few ridiculous mistakes which cost them what should have been, a win, especially when you take a look at the first test at Edgbaston. The second test at Lords, England were just outplayed. And if you take a look at Edgbaston, for instance, Kenny Cannon, who is still very much a part of this show, and we've been really blessed to have him come on whenever he possibly could to offer some analysis and his own perspective. He basically said that one of the reasons why England saw it fit to try to bounce Australia out in the deciding innings of the Edgbaston Test was because with the new ball, it didn't swing as much as it seemed. And that's not a play on words. It seemed more than it swung. So if you were to try to pitch it up in the hope that you would get a from the batsman, in all likelihood, according to Kenny Ken, that wouldn't have happened. Okay. As I said, if you tried to pitch the ball up when it would swing a bit in the hope of getting an edge, in all likelihood, you'd end up getting a bit of a streaky boundary. And Nathan Lyon's little sort of chipped flamingo shot for four off Stuart Broad was proof that that would never have happened with the old ball. So with the new ball, they felt as though they had to try to bounce them out. But when it came to the short stuff, I think the Australians, for the most part, knew how to handle that better. They obviously, knew how to duck a lot more, avoid the really dangerous ones, and just play the bad balls effectively. Because when you tire yourself out bowling those short pitch deliveries, you end up invariably bowling an absolute dolly, which gets, guided to the, the backward point or third man boundary for four. And that's sort of how it proved. And don't get me started on Ben Stokes' early declaration. Had he at least continued to bat until the end of the day's play and declared that day, he would almost certainly have given his team 50 more runs to their total and given them the psychological barrier and that advantage of reaching that 400 target in a day's play. Because we saw with the pitch playing the way it did, those extra few overs to bowl at the Aussie batsmen made absolutely no difference. At Lord's, England were just outplayed. They got their act together at Headingley when they made some good replacements, and we have to give credit to the bowlers who came in. Mark Wood and Chris Wokes, especially, the two Ws combining to give England another W with the ball and the bat. And then, of course, Rain playing spoil sport. Sometimes, if I will agree, basically, that England did make a lot of gains, but in the end, we also saw a lot of inconsistencies from their batting, with the likes of Root and Brooke and company not quite being as consistent as they would be. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Joseph Edward Root. I think he's far and away England's greatest ever batsman, putting Alistair Cook, Kevin Peterson and company to shame. I mean, in the shade. But he will know that his attempts to try and up the ante with the reverse sweep and try and play that way ended up costing England on more than a few occasions, whether it was, getting stumped, trying to attempt the another sweep or what have you. And this is another idea of how sometimes, in as much as people want to talk about the exciting nature of baseball, sometimes in Test cricket, there is no substitute for prudence and basic common sense. And England just didn't really have that. And you would think that a side like England, who had the likes of Stokes and Root and Anderson and Broad and company, even Bairstow as well, players with well over 90 or 100 caps to their name, you'd think they'd know better. And of course, the injury to Ollie Pope didn't help. But speaking of injuries, I would also go so far to say that Nathan Lyon's injury during the second test also really set the Aussies back in a very big way, because they lacked a genuine spinner who would really give them some trouble. I know Todd Murphy came in later on at the end of the series and did his bit to try and peg England back. And he didn't do a bad job at all once he got more confidence from his captain. But you felt at times that, especially during the third test at Headingley, that Cummins could have trusted Murphy a little bit more, rather than having to turn to his medium pacers and part-time spinners. But there were so many things which kind of happened. And I think England will actually have to look at this as an opportunity missed, because they could have, with some prudent cricket, taken the lead at Edgbaston and really showed that they were much more aggressive than the Aussies in every single way. But they can't have this sort of a sour grapes attitude by saying that, we were the better team and we should, and by all rights, we should have won the series and reclaimed the urn. I think that's sour grapes. I think the real test will be to see how well they do. And the issue of talent coming through is going to be the real sticking point, because when it comes to England, and English cricket over the years, and I think Kenny Ken will also testify. England have always had some trouble trying to, really, really bring some youngsters through who can become really consistent and really start to play well. Because let's consider this: England have seen over 700 players play for them. Australia maybe a nick over 450. And so their secret is that, yes, a player can come in, play some cricket, and if he's deemed not quite good enough, he ends up getting dropped, but then he gets a chance to redeem himself in Sheffield Shield cricket back in Australia. And if his returns are good, he gets a recall. Usman Khawaja is a perfect example of this. He got his recall when none of us were expecting him to come back, and he finished as his side's top scorer with just under 500 runs, and has had a magnificent time of it ever since coming back into the Australian team, with runs flowing from his bat like water through a river. With England, when it comes to players who get given a chance and then get dropped, they're not immediately brought back. So invariably, it becomes a case of trying to get flavor of the month players, some young, exciting players brought through for the sake of, giving them some exposure. And then when they end up not being, and when they end up not being able to do, did you say Harry Brook?
Yeah.
Cheap shot. He's one of the rare exceptions who's done reasonably well. Cut it out. I'm talking about a guy, of course, with a South African connection like Keaton Jennings, the son, of course, of the former Transvaal Mean Machine goal wicketkeeper Ray Jennings, who was very unlucky not to have played international cricket for South Africa, and of course, who went on to coach his nation. And Keaton was also, as you know, the under-19 captain for the South African team, but decided to throw in his lot with England and made his debut with us and scored a century on debut on tour in Asia. But after a few tests where he, would play some shots and not really quite get to grips with, the fast pitched up or short pitched bowling, he was dropped. And he's been scoring runs for Lancashire, but apart from being recalled to a tour squad for a camp in Dubai, he was never considered again. And you just know that despite the inconsistencies of Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley, who also never really were able to get consistent big partnerships at the top of the order, you just know that they're going to be stuck with. And if they get dropped, no matter how well Keaton Jennings performs, he may never come back in. And several players like this suffered by being unjustly dropped when they still had a lot to offer. Another player who I can think of with another South African connection, Robin Arnold-Smith from Durban. He played 62 tests for us, was a brilliant player of fast bowling, couldn't quite handle the spin. So Australia are the type of team which believes in, the value of experience and having taken the hard knocks and having fought and fighting your way back. And that's one of the reasons why when you bring back those types of players, you have a better chance, in theory at least, of seeing the team become more successful. While with England, we're basically trying to pick more and more youngsters, hoping that they will make the grade. And while some of them do, many others just don't. So I think England also do need to take a look at that. They're definitely going to need to take a look at some middle order batsmen to replace Root and Bairstow once they decide to retire. When Ben Stokes decides to call it a day, who's going to be our next all-rounder? We've already said goodbye to Stuart Broad. If James Anderson were to leave, and that won't be too far away, I certainly don't see him playing the next Ashes series in Australia, unless, of course, he somehow manages to take a boatload of wickets and retain the form he's shown. We also have many, many questions, so we can't brush those under the carpet. As far as Australia are concerned, I think Cummins isn't tactically the best, let's get that straight. But in terms of his leadership ability, his statesman-like qualities, I think in that Australian team, he is currently peerless. And there doesn't seem to be anyone who can replace him. If I never see Steve Smith captaining the team again, it will be too soon. Somebody like an Usman Khawaja or Travis Head can do a decent stand-in job for a few years, the way Brad Haddin did after Michael Clarke, when Michael Clarke was coming near to the end of his career.
I think Khawaja is a bit too old. He's getting close to that 40 mark. also.
He is, mate. But you know what they say in Australia: age is nothing but a number, and several have been the players who have, continued to play well when they've been in great form, who have gone on to play even into just touching their forties, if not during their forties. So as long as he's still in good form and still performing well and has a good cricketing brain, I say why not? Although maybe he might not want it because he doesn't want to. He wants to concentrate on his batting. So I think Australia must, stick with Cummins at least for the short term.
Yeah,
But the fact that they've also decided to make Mitchell Marsh the T20 captain, and we're going to talk about Australia's T20 series, I think that's probably a sign that maybe they're starting to move away from Cummins a little bit or trying to consider some other options. Happy for Mitch, by the way, because we never thought we'd see him play a big role in Aussie cricket ever again. And as I said, Nathan Lyon's injury was a big blow, and I think the seam attack of Australia has. I think it really needs to, toughen up a little bit, and people and some of the bowlers who are in the team and also on the fringes of the team will really need to step up their game at first class level and make sure that they can really prove themselves to be capable, because many times it was Cummins who'd be taking the wickets or Mitchell Stark, and Mitchell Stark also, like Cummins, can't go on forever, so they do have some problems with the fast bowling department. And when Nathan Lyon retires, of course, who's going to be their next great spinner? So you are right in saying that there are questions, but England also can't really ignore everything and what's going
yeah,
on their side. I think Australia will certainly look to try to solve some of their issues as time goes on, and I think the upcoming home series that they're going to play at the end of this year, 2013, 2014, will be an opportunity to try to bring some people in. I think Warner's probably earned his right to a home farewell, although if he doesn't score big in the first few tests, he might not get that opportunity. But there will be some players blooded in, and I think people are going to look at the first class scene that's going on, and they're gonna find some invariably going to find some solutions, and I think they're going to be fine. But as for England, well, we're going through a good phase right now. But unless we have some people who are willing to knock on the door and say to the old guys, "Get out of the way, it's my time to shine," we're going to have a few problems. That's why you saw Alistair Cook playing for as long as you did. That's why you see Anderson and Broad playing for as long as they have so far. And we're going to have to really make sure that we start a process of phasing out a few of the seniors when they don't really perform well. And there's always going to be a part of me that thinks that Alistair Cook overstayed his welcome when it came to England and was very, very lucky to have gotten the farewell that he did.
yeah. And speaking of Alistair Cook, something mm, uh, that he probably should have learned. Oh well, something that Broad learned from Alistair Cook is you need to pick the right time to retire. Um, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
couldn't quite get the question. There was a issue with the internet.
no, it's just me saying that Broad learned from Alistair Cook basically about when to retire, and I think maybe could have waited a few more, but it's a great way to go out. If they would have won the series, it would have been better. Um, but you wait 2 years, you're 40, maybe you're not in that right form. So probably the correct call from Stuart Broad. How long will Anderson still continue? Who knows? Um, so yeah, but I think that's basically everything. Uh, it was a really good series. Yeah, England did do well. But let's move on to New Zealand against England for the series going on. I want to focus on the T20 series scores. There's lots lots of talk about uh, that one. Of course, they are also playing an ODI one, but let's touch on this one. Of course, tomorrow they're playing the fourth T20. Um, So England, they won the first super comfortably, and the third one, New Zealand won comfortably. I just want to look at the lineups for England. So they had Bastow, Jacks, I don't know, David Malan, Harry Brook, Liam Livingston, Josh Butler, Moan Ali, Sam Curran, Adil Rashid, Kosh, and Elwood. So few players I don't know. They that played in the
Was
first
this for the first
T20.
T? Yeah, the first one. Good, good, good.
Yeah. And then in the second one for England, almost the exact same lineup. A few more changes. Atkinson, Kosh, um, and Jacks also. So I don't really recognize most of the few England players. Same with the no, sorry. Yeah. Let me just look at the 30-20. Yeah, 30-20 also. Really, if I look at New Zealand, of course, the series is 2-1 to England, going to the final one. New Zealand, Finn Allen, Devon Conway, Tim Sherwitz. Haven't heard my, don't know him. Mark Chapman, don't really know him. Um, yeah, the rest I know. Lockie Ferguson. Um, so yeah, I think that's it's probably one of the probably the strongest New Zealand can go. Sam Sherwood, of course, is there for instead of Mr. Williamson. So
Tim Southey,
yeah,
you mean?
uh, no, the better
What's
Tim,
his name? Seifert. Yes, Seifert is his name.
yeah, Seifert, Tim
Yeah.
Seifert, yeah, um, Tim Savvy, yeah, my theory. Just a few new players, Mark Chapman and Tim Seifert. Um, I don't really recognize. Um, but I haven't been able to catch any of the action. But it's two on going to the fourth T20. Um, England and New Zealand have played most the strong sides really. Um, it will be interesting to see if they can make it 3-1. I don't know what. Have you been able to catch any of the action?
Not really, no, because I've been sort of busy trying to focus on a lot of other things, including the football. But I was able to
Yeah,
sort of catch some of the, some highlights of the game, and I wasn't really, focusing too much. And I think it's fair to say that when it comes to New Zealand, one big piece of news that they've just gotten, and I'm sure this will be a relief to many Kiwi fans, is that Kane Williamson has officially recovered from his knee injury to earn a place in the ODI World Cup squad with New Zealand. And that's going to be a really big fillip for them because they've missed his batsmanship and his leadership qualities. Whether he will reclaim the captaincy from Tim Southey will remain to be seen. I think Southey might be more than willing to hand the captaincy back to his most senior batsman and senior teammate, but that will be some help. But several of these names in question, I mean, I recognize Allen and Conway as the opening partnership, which took New Zealand well on their way, and Daryl Mitchell and Mitch Santner, of course, played their roles in that campaign. That was at the T20 World Cup over in Australia, and Ish Sodhi, Tim Southey, of course, a few others. But New Zealand obviously eager to try some new players and seeing how well they can do. And it's the same thing with England, really, because you recognise them: Bairstow, Milan, Brook, Butler, Ali, Livingston. Jordan came in as an injury replacement and ended up playing. Milan, of course, missed out on playing in the final. And then Adil Rashid was also there. Very interesting to see Braden Carson, Gus Atkinson come in. I think both Carson and Atkinson are looked at as seam bowling options. Chris Jordan, of course, won't be a part of the ODI squad, but he is still in England 2020 plans, at least for now. But Atkinson, so far in 2 games, has taken 6 wickets and certainly looked to, be a little bit threatening, if not necessarily accurate. And Cars also did well with 3 wickets in the first T20 and 1 in the second. So England are in a position where they can also experiment with youngsters and try and, take the team a little bit forward. Obviously, Alex Hales retiring has left a little bit of a gap on the top of the order, but Will Jacks is now in, and obviously he needs to try to make a little bit more of the opportunities that he can get, because competition for places will be very, very, it'll be at its height. And then, of course, there are 4 T20 internationals and 4 ODIs. So I believe the final T20, which will be taking place tomorrow UK time, will be very interesting indeed. And the case of basically New Zealand fielding some members of that, some new faces, but once a few experienced faces come back in time for the ODI World Cup, I think they're going to be, as usual, a force to be reckoned with. A bit of a shame that Martin Guptill is no longer in their plans, but with Allen and Conway having done as well as they have done, I think it was just a case of, Guptill not really just being phased out at the moment. So sadly, he won't get a chance to make up for that heartbreaking final defeat. But he's had a good career for New Zealand. But New Zealand, of course, obviously looking to evolve their team. And of course, from the first ODI, first T20 rather, we see Adam Milne and Lockie Ferguson, who are a part of that squad as well. Don't forget Glenn Phillips and 1 or 2 others. It's a decent team, maybe not their strongest, and even England also have picked a mainly experienced side with a few youngsters in it. So it's been a decent series, and I'm going to try and catch the final T20 tomorrow if time permits.
Yeah, same. I will try and catch it. Um, but yeah, subject I don't really want to talk about. But before we move on to that, predictions. Tomorrow, England, New Zealand. Will be backing.
I'm backing England, of course. I think the way the youngsters have gelled in, and the way the batting has looked decent. You only need the thing about T20 cricket is that you only need one batsman to make a really big score, and you can get yourself you can set a really big target or perform a really good chase, as long as you have other people chipping in. If you have 2 batsmen making big scores, that's a bonus. But I don't see Conway doing really enough, and it's a bit surprising that Conway has been showed faith while Guptill has been shown the door. I think Conway might need to really pull his socks up, otherwise his place could very well be in jeopardy. But yeah, backing England to win. It might be a little bit closer. I would say 4 wickets or 20 runs. That's the
Uh,
spirit, Chelsea fan. Come on, England, make it 3-1. Brilliant.
I'm going to go for 3. No, sorry, New Zealand one. 40, no, 30 runs or 5 wickets. Um, so yeah. But shout out to Sunny, that sports guy. He gave me an idea that I want to use. Um, um, is it? Mm, ja- um, why can't I find it? But yeah, I'll come back to that when I find it. Um, oh wait, yeah, yeah, it is. One sec. Then I'll come back to that. Um, but yeah, yeah, one sec. But Aussies serious one over the Proteas expected. Basically. Um, but before I continue, I just want to quickly one sec, then and go to that.
Just had a quick change of internet connection. I hope you're still there, Hannah. Hannah seems to have gone somewhere. Well, the next
Yeah,
topic, of course,
I
we're
am. Yeah,
discussing is brilliant, brilliant,
yeah,
brilliant. Sorry about that. So you said you don't
no,
want to talk about it, but we have to.
yeah. I just quickly want to listen to this one idea Sunny gave me. Then I want to mention. So just want to quickly listen to so Sunny gave me. Then we can. So Um, I might do this for the World Cup, a Rugby World Cup, but definitely going to do it for the Cricket World Cup. Is that we will be having a prediction league for it, where just basically predict who wins and where who wins what matches, and yeah. So I'll get everyone involved that has been on the shows regularly to get involved and more people. So yeah, um, but yeah, Aussie serious on over the Proteas. They sent out the B squad. Um, let's keep it at that. There was no look when they have Travis said opening the batting. Um, and Matthew Short also there with him, then you know it's not the strongest team. Um, you've got three new bowlers that nobody has ever heard of playing. Uh, Nathan Alice, um, Aaron Hardy. They just basically went into the Big Bash, grabbed all their big stars and took them from there and put them into this. There's no the only real guys that are regulars are mm, um, Head, Mitchell Marsh, and Paul Stoinis and Zampa in the T20 and ODI format for Australia. The rest didn't. For us, uh, we do have a few guys missing. For Snow, the Cock, or Adaba, or Nokia. Um, but would they have made a big difference? I don't know. Yeah, the Cock Klassen is, I think Klassen was there. No, I think it was Klassen there. Him, if not, then him also. Um, no, so basically Klassen, the cock, um, Radaba and Nokia, probably the four that usually are there at 20. Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, just taking a look at the Australian team for the first one, you've also left out Tim David, who's been a very big part of Australia's T20 team, and in fact played most of their games at the World Cup ahead of Steve Smith, surprisingly,
Yeah, but I
as
don't rate
they,
some David. For me,
yeah,
I think he's overhyped.
yeah, and also, I
Yeah.
mean, like if you remember the IPL, you'll remember the huge hitting he was doing for the Mumbai Indians. But that first innings sort of summed up what I told you. As long as you have one player or maybe two who can make some big scores, you can definitely get yourself a big total. And that's exactly what Mitchell Marsh and Tim David ended up doing. Some decent 20s from Short and Hardy, nothing else from anyone else, but they didn't need anyone else. Uh, two sixes and 13 fours from Marsh, four biggies and 7 4s from Tim David. And it was just a matter of time. And I think when you take a look at the bowling, you see that Rabada is a very big miss and Norche also. And Janssen and Ngidi obviously were not quite able to stem the flow of runs. Neither was Kutsi. And I mean, Williams did take 3 wickets, but he also was a little bit expensive. And he was actually smacked for three big ones too, as was the left arm unorthodox bowler, Shamsi. And of course, when it comes to the batting, De Kock is going to be a very big miss. I know that Bavuma has been excellent for South Africa in the ODI team and also a test level, and I think he is still captain in those formats. But maybe as a T20 batsman, he's not quite able to, consistently provide the acceleration that South Africa would need. So there might be a case that he could be asked to step aside from T20 duties and have De Kock brought back in. Although, given De Kock's own history, I mean, I wouldn't say history, but there are some issues with him. I don't know if South Africa are going to necessarily get the best out of him. And then you've got Van der Dussen and Markram, who, Markram obviously captaining the team. I don't know if the captaincy is affecting his batting or not. And then there was just hardly any contributions from some of the other players. And I want to take a look now at the second T20, if I possibly can. Yeah, my computer's playing up now at the worst possible time.
Um, do you want me to read the team lineup for you?
No, it's okay. I think I've got it. It just takes a little bit of time to work with this ridiculous, outdated computer, and I always get these advertisements whenever I go to Cricinfo, and they made one change to their team. Fortuin came in and didn't really do very much, it must be said, and I think Australia also in that position where, Marsh once again top scoring with 79 off 39, and then Short at the top of the order, hitting very long indeed. So Australia are in a good position where they can, where with Short coming in to the team and doing well at the top of the order, he certainly looks a really good prospect going forward. And March definitely, as I've said, it's great to see him having a very big role in Australian cricket once again. And especially among the bowlers, we see Behrendorff, slightly experienced, Sean Abbott, Nathan Ellis combining for 8 wickets between them. Abbott, of course, was the bowler whose delivery accounted for Phil Hughes in a Sheffield Shield match. May God rest Philip Hughes' soul. And he is, of course, trying to forge a career for himself again and come back. And it's good to see that people have given him some goodwill, because obviously he was devastated and completely, traumatized by everything that happened. And of course, with the with the South African batsman, at least Markram was able to do a bit better. Bavuma also, making me eat my own words with a breezy knock of 35. But again, it's the inconsistency that really, grates, and the inability to really convert those big scores into those pretty scores into really, really big scores. And once again, the bowling also left a lot to be desired. And Gidi and Kotze in particular were very, very expensive. And as far as the third ODI T20 is concerned, why do I keep saying ODI? It's T20. Maybe I've got the World Cup on my mind. I don't know. So South Africa once again bringing in another guy, Britske. I think that's how you pronounce it. And another one, Donovan Ferreira. Keshav Maharaj came back into the team. Ferreira actually did quite well, took advantage of his chance, and Bavuma once again getting out for his second duck in the series, a golden duck at that. Hendricks providing a good score. Markram also doing well. 190 for 8 seemed a better score, but when you're up against an Aussie batting lineup that was as devastating as they were in the first two T20s, 190 was never truly going to be enough, and especially with the way they were bowling, it proved to be that way. Sean Abbott again continuing his fine run with 4 wickets, and Stoinis also opening the bowling and snagging 2. And there were some good gains from this series. A few players did enhance their reputations. Matthew Short sadly missing out. I think it was Aidan Markram who brought himself on to bowl as the captain and got him out LBW. So that was the end of his prolific series. But Head coming great with a 91. Marsh missing out, but Inglis and Stoinis combining quite well. And although there were a few wickets taken near the end, it was effectively too little, too late. So I think I think South Africa do have some problems again, and it's effectively, maybe not problems per se, but they now realise that there are some players that just can't be dropped from the team, especially when you consider how South African cricket over the years has been very much, dominated by the fast bowlers, and the fast bowlers have always been the ones who have really taken the limelight as some of their greatest cricketers. I'm old enough to remember the likes of Alan Donald and Sean Pollock, and of course, moving on from that, you had Dale Steyn, Makhaya Ntini, obviously, and several others. And so the likes of Rabada and Norche are, I would say, South Africa's best bowlers. And if you take them out, you more or less have a toothless attack. I would have Maharaj over Shamsi as a spinner every day, and Maharaj can also bat a little bit too. And there are going to be some problems with South Africa unless they can get every single bit of the balance right. And I think Markram is also growing into his role as T20 skipper. Once he learns to, balance the responsibilities of being a middle order batsman and captain effectively, I'm sure he'll do a better job, and he might even become a future Test captain of the Proteas sometime soon. As far as Australia are concerned, they've blooded some new talent, but they've kept an experienced core, and they do. The best part about the likes of Abbott and company doing as well as they did is that they can also, going forward, given that they also play a lot of Sheffield Shield cricket, be potential options for Australia in the seam bowling department, especially when the likes of Stark and Cummins decide to call it a day. So I think South Africa will still need to ask and answer a few questions of themselves and just focus on trying to make sure they get their best team, but also a really, really good squad of players. And there are, I think, 1 or 2 players who, quite frankly, shouldn't be in the squad. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's the way I see it.
No, spot on. Look, there needs to be. It's hard to go against the stuff, but like it's hard to identify good talent out there right now in the South African arena, because it really isn't. Um, But yeah, Australia uh, is going to be like that. I think going forward. Um, like this, we're going to struggle. This is why I don't expect us to win anything. So yeah. But we'll quickly do predictions. Um, for the first two ODIs. I'm going to go with. I think we will win one, and Australia will win one. Do you reckon?
So just taking a look at
First,
the schedule, there are three ODIs that are going to be played in Bloemfontein. The fourth one at Centurion, and the final one at Johannesburg, I think. And unless Rabada and Norche come back in for the ODIs, I'm afraid to say that it will be a repeat of the T20 series for the first two games at least. But if Rabada and Norche come back, South Africa could have a chance. And
yeah,
I probably will go for Australia to win both of the first two ones. One of them will be a convincing win. The other one might be a little bit closer.
yeah, yeah. But going two ones for them.
And in fact, the South African coach, I'm going to find out what he said because, yeah, the South Africa coach, Rob Walters, basically said that the batting has looked quite decent and has progressed fairly well, but the bowling obviously has had a bit of an eye opener, and that is the big issue because it's the bowling really that will take South Africa, that makes South Africa a really feared team. So yeah, a lot to be a lot to think about for the Proteas, and they're really going to have to pull their socks up.
Yeah. But let's quickly move on to women's cricket action. Pakistan women are taking on South Africa and women. Um, they did a clean sweep in the first three T20s. Of course, South Africa without Sunday lose, I believe. No, no, the other one. What's her name? The other senior
Chloe
one.
Tryon. Chloe Tryon.
Chloe Tryon and there's someone else.
Actually, Sune
Uh,
Luz was picked for the series, but Tryon wasn't. And I actually
yeah.
did read later on that. I'll just ask a quick question. I actually read later on that earlier that Sune Luz actually stepped down as captain. I was wondering why she did that because although in terms of batting, she never really was able to contribute too much. I thought she did a pretty good job as captain, taking the team to the final in South Africa. I wonder what would have prompted her to take this decision to step down.
Um, I don't know. Really, I think it might just be a case of seeing what others do with the captaincy. Um, really. Um, but yeah, I think I think also a bit of pressure on her. Maybe she just want to focus on herself. So yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Because I'm taking a look at the first ODI right now, and I do recognise some names from that team. Obviously, Wolvart and Brits at the top of the order. Mariazan Cap coming in. There is no Shabnim Ismail, of course. I believe she retired, but of course Sune Luz, and afterwards there was Sinala Jafta, the wicketkeeper, Ayabonga Khaka, Aneke Bosch, and also Nonkululeko Mlaba, the left arm spinner, who was very impressive in the World Cup. I think Delmi Tucker played one or two internationals, I think. So this first 11 was reasonably strong if you take a look at team which played in the World Cup. Although Chloe Tryon, with her
Uh,
powerful batting,
um,
Hannah.
Wolfhard is the captain now instead of Sunay Luz.
Yes.
Um, but she's just on an interim basis. So yeah, she a decision came as she just want to focus on a cricket. And of course, vice captain Chloe Tryon is dropped. Um,
Yeah,
we,
Tryon for me is a bit of a loss because we remember, both you and I remember, her powerful hitting and her very useful left arm spin. Not quite as penetrative as Mlaba's, but definitely a useful option as an all rounder.
yeah,
So this wasn't necessarily a very weak team, and
no, no,
this Pakistan side, it must be said, had the benefit of their home conditions as well. It was quite sad that, despite some brilliant work at the top of the order from Volvart and Brits, they weren't quite able to back that up with the ball. And I think it's fair to say that a lot will depend on Marizan Cap, and Mlaba and Khaka were outstanding in the World Cup, but weren't quite effective in this game. And there's going to be a lot of talk about what's going to happen to the bowling attack, and how long they're going to get to really develop themselves. And Cap is now effectively the senior stateswoman in that team, so she's made it clear that she wants to stick around and guide the team going forward. But maybe there isn't a maybe there's a case that the South African women need to have a lot more experience of playing outside their home conditions in order to really develop as a cricketing unit. Because to see them, succumb to a Pakistan team that didn't even make the semi-finals of that World Cup, it's a little bit disappointing. But maybe it's par for the course when you come to Pakistan. You expect that the home team will have the measure of the conditions. But also, let's not take anything away from the Pakistan ladies. They did very well indeed.
yeah, they did do well. Well, but real quick prediction for the first ODI taking place on Friday. I'm going to back us. I think we should be able to win.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a close South Africa win because, T20 cricket is always going to be a little bit of a lottery in some respects. And now at least I can try and take a look again. And obviously, once again, the second T20, we see Volvart and Brits continuing their fine work. But once again, the bowling not really being effective. I think the wickets in Pakistan may not necessarily be conducive at this particular time to the quicks. But the Pakistan women, Sidra Amin and Bismar Maroof, Muniba Ali and others, all are doing their bit with the bat. And
Mhm.
also for the third T20, we can definitely see um,
Oh,
yeah, we
yeah.
can definitely see the third one with yeah, I think I don't know if that got over just today, but I'm going to take a look at the full scorecard. Give me a
Um,
minute. Yeah, got it.
yeah.
And I think this time Pakistan batted first, and three really good, decent scores at the top of the order, propelling them to 150 for 5. This time, the South African bowlers didn't do too badly. Sekukune coming into the team and picking up a couple. Mlaba at the top. And I think Marizan Cap was, replaced for that third game. But again, it was a question of, once again, Volvart providing a brilliant start at the top of the order. Brits not really, capitalizing. And again, not too many contributions from the middle order. So the big problem that South Africa have now is that they're still dependent on Volvart and Brits to provide the real impetus at the top of the order. And the bowling has also disappointed. But having said that, in T20 cricket, it's always going to be so fast paced and so ruthless that one mistake can cost you heavily, whether it's by a wicket or conceding a boundary. In the ODI level, I think I'd like to see South Africa being a little bit more penetrative with the ball in their hand, and also for the middle order to start stepping up. And certainly Lewis, who took the decision to resign as captain, will have to start contributing with the bat a little bit more. But I think in terms of fielding, one thing for which I'll give her credit is that she's arguably the best fielder in that South African team. Hanno, can you hear me? I'm experiencing a few problems with my internet at the moment, and now Hanno has had some problems with his. So obviously those are my opinions, my perspective on everything, and now giving me a whole load of problems, as are the websites at the moment. Yeah, so we're still waiting for Hanno to come back, and hopefully his issues with the internet will be resolved. So I've also had some issues right now with my internet. So I'm not behind controlling everything. Not too sure what more we can talk about. I can also tell you that the Asian Cup is going on right now as well, and obviously the leading nations are competing seriously in that tournament. The India-Pakistan game was washed out, just as well for India because the bowlers literally had India on the rack, so to speak. And it's taking place in Sri Lanka at the moment, so rain in places like Kandy is always going to be a bit of an issue. And yeah, the most recent match, of course, in the Asian Cup saw India beat Nepal in a shortened game by the Duckworth-Lewis method. They scored 147 for no loss after a shade over 20 overs, and the target was, of course, from 23. But they are, of course, now into the Super Fours, and we're going to take a look at the Asia Cup series right now. So there are basically 6 teams, and the top 2 teams will get into the Super Fours or the semi-finals, whatever you want to call them. And I believe it's a Super Fours, so that could also end up invariably being a league phase where each team plays 3 games. The final game in Group B, and I will share this screen with you right now. Yeah, so we've got the information here from Cricinfo. In Group A, both Pakistan and India have played twice. The game between them, of course, was washed out, and both teams have 3 points each, with Nepal having lost both their games, so Pakistan and India are through. The other term group features Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. And the game between Sri Lanka and Afghanistan should probably be a mere formality because Afghanistan's dismal net run rate means that they don't really have much of a chance of qualifying unless they're able to pull off the mother of all shocks and qualify at the expense of Bangladesh. They're certainly not going to be able to overhaul Sri Lanka's run rate, and even Bangladesh's run rate will still be, quite difficult. But this is, of course, the we will take a look at some of the results from games played earlier. And we're not going to go in depth into these results, obviously. Hannah, good to see you back. How are you?
Yeah, sorry.
All good.
Wi-Fi just
So,
dipped.
yeah, so I
Uh,
was just talking a bit about the Asia Cup as well taking place, and we're not going to go in depth into this because we probably don't have time. But the usual suspects playing in Sri Lanka doing well: Pakistan, Sri Lanka. The India-Pakistan game, of course, was washed out with no result. India, of course, were dismissed for 266, but Pakistan couldn't bat because of the rain in Palikele. And I believe it's
yeah, and
being
actually
jointly
there
hosted
is
by Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
for
What do you say?
Nepal, because they put up for Nepal they of course put up what 230, and because of the rain the target was shortened a lot against India. Um, so yeah, but it's what it is. A question: what do you make of India's struggles with high pace? Um, I
Yeah, let
think
me answer that. Let me answer that. Obviously, both Bhargav and I do watch quite a bit of Indian cricket. I am more of a fan of English cricket, but I do watch Indian cricket whenever I can. I don't know if it's down to the coaching or what have you, but Kenny Ken and I were having a huge chat on this very show about how to play short pitched bowling and some of the struggles that teams, encounter. And of course, with another South African connection, which you might like, Hanno, one of England's best players of short pitched bowling of all time was a certain Alan Joseph Lamb, who was born and brought up in Langebanweg in the Cape Province. So, how far is that from your neck of the woods?
where do you say
Langebanweg.
we?
Langebanweg.
I think it's far from me. It's a few. It's probably about 5 hours.
Yeah. So, I think it's on the southern tip of
Yeah.
the Cape Province, and you were all the way up in the north. So,
Would
it would be quite far anyway.
No, not in the north, more western side.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Right. So,
But
obviously,
what's his name?
Alan Lamb, and he also studied at Winburg Boys High School and
Yeah.
went on to study at university in South Africa. I don't remember the university. Was it Stellenbosch or Rondebosch? I don't know, but he went on to emigrate to England to play in the county scene and was capped by England due to his English parentage. And on 6 occasions, he was able to score centuries against the West Indian bowling attack at their fiercest. And Ian Botham Beefy obviously still rates Lammy as the best player of short pitch bowling he had ever had the pleasure of playing with. And Kenny Ken said because it was basically because Lamb was more of a back foot player. So when you rock back onto the back foot, you can sort of give yourself some more room to maneuver with the ball and try and sort of play it or cut it. The biggest problem that a lot of batsmen have, especially with T20 cricket, is that they like to play off the front foot. So India for a long time had some wonderfully technically correct batsmen in Sachin Tendulkar and Rahul Dravid. I absolutely adored Rahul Dravid and loved watching him play. Oh boy, was he class. Um, Venkat Sai Lakshman was also quite decent. Most of the Indian batsmen were a lot more comfortable against the spin. But because likes of Dravid and Tendulkar worked on their technique, they were able to play all the shots, whether it was on the front foot or off the back foot. And with most Indian batsmen, especially being brought up on T20 cricket, preferring to play off the front foot, it's almost difficult for them to adapt when whether it's dealing with a fast pitched up Yorker or a short one coming at you very quickly. So I think it's a question of coaching and the technique that some of these players use. And that is something that they're going to have to really start looking at again. And it's very difficult to think of a player who could be classified in Indian circles as a really good player of short pitched bowling. Sharma is quite decent, and Kohli obviously is, almost peerless. But again, the number of batsmen who are really willing to adapt their technique to play more off the back foot is very, very few. And of course, over the years, South African batsmen, Hanno, have always been very good against fast bowling because they've had some of the fastest bowlers for practice, especially at the Curry Cup level. Eh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, so yeah, but look, I think with India, it's more. You don't really see much fast bowlers coming through. You've got Shami as the main fast bowler. I don't think there's really anyone else. Maybe Bumrah. There isn't really much short pitch bowling coming through there for India. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here, people. Make sure to follow the Instagram accounts. I will be posting more reels on day, especially of the two World Cups rugby and cricket coming out. So yeah, that's it. Manny, where can people find you?
Yeah, obviously, people can find me over here on the Coach's Corner, chewing the fat with Mr. Trollope on a lot of issues, whether it's football tactics or cricket, strategies or what have you. I absolutely love being on this channel. Big up to him. Big up as well to Oris from Oris Talks Football. I'm a co-host there. Big up to Del Boy Gunner TV. You can see me being a part of those streams and also hosting a few streams occasionally whenever Del Boy can't quite make it, because obviously, we have to make sure that that channel keeps churning out some good content, and our fan cam shows are always quite popular among the chat, even if people don't seem to want to come on and have a say. Other channels on YouTube, Tony Claude Gunner TV, Danny AFC TV, Up the Cherries in all departments, Eugene Spurs Asia TV, AFC Talk Show TV, Villa TV, TJ Warren TV, The Southern Gooner, and also big up to S Beatley TV. Still trying to reactivate the channel, and that will hopefully take place in due course. But yeah, on social media, you see my name, add my year of birth, 1981, and that's where you can find me on Instagram and Threads. If you want to find me on Twitter, it's just my surname, Thangadurai, and my year of birth, 1981. And I want to thank all of you for being here on the chat. I do apologize for the Wi-Fi issues which have, plagued this stream, but sometimes, it's sort of, you play the hand you've been dealt, and that's pretty much the way it goes. But always great to do these streams and have these, really in-depth talks about a lot of other things, and also have discussions with like-minded people who love watching sports and even playing sports. And as long as we keep it respectful, we're always going to find it very enjoyable. So have a good rest of your week, people. Enjoy the sporting action on offer, whether it's, I think it's the international break in football. So you're going to have to wait till the weekend, but there will be some cricket action, of course. Do catch that as and when you can. Take care of yourselves. Stay happy, stay safe. Don't do anything that Mr. Trollope and I wouldn't do. For now, though, adieu. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. For me, of course, Instagram Hanu_coach_corner, Twitter Anu70830030, and then TikTok Coach Corner 1. Like I say, I'm going to push out some shorts and reels with the Rugby World Cup and Cricket World Cup coming up. I probably won't do any live streams regarding that. Um, Regarding the Rugby World Cup, but of course the Cricket will do on, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, be up yourselves, people. And yeah, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe button. And yeah, we'll see you all in a bit. Peace out, people.